it's Monday again, and Mike and I are down at the shed. This is actually our third time down here today. If you see that thing standing there in the background, that's a shelf that we've been building. I think I showed it in one of the previous videos. And we put 3 coats of spray-on polyurethane on that today. So, like I said, we've been down here yesterday and today getting that done. But we're down here right now to start working on the pinball machine. So let me show you what we're doing. Before I show you that, I thought I would show you the shelf that we built. So basically, each of these little cubbies is going to hold 4 6-packs of Coke or a case of beer. And it's a storage unit that's going to go down at the yacht club that Mike and I belong to. But Mike is over here reassembling temporarily this Captain Fantastic box so that we can figure out how much extra wire we need when we start wiring the switches, which is one of the things we plan on working on tonight. The other thing that we're going to work on is the lights that we put on the pinball machine last week, and we actually plugged that in earlier today. With no film on that, of course, but when we did that, we discovered that we actually have a intermittent failure, and it occurs between, I think it's either this one or this one, I'm not sure, one of these two, and the arrow right next to it. So the light under here comes on, the arrow doesn't unless you go down and jiggle on it. So it looks like the signal wire is just a coal solder joint or something on there. So I'm going to start working on that while Mike is working on the box back there, and then we'll keep on going from there. Because of how poorly colors show up on the filming, I don't think you guys are going to be able to see this. In the camera, it kind of all looks white to me. But if you look at the reflection over here, we have some yellow there. All of the lights in this string are turned to yellow. But if you look down here, you can see that it definitely looks redder than it looks yellow over there. Well, the string starts over there, but the power is dropping by the time we get down to the end here, and all that's showing up is the red. So we're in the process of hooking up a power supply so that we can drive this with more power than it just gets off at a little USB connector. By the way, we did fix the little problem we had here. There was just a little wire shorting out, a little burr of a wire on one of the LEDs, and so we fixed that. We're going to go ahead and get that hooked up to power, and then we're going to hook it up both to the end of the string right there and the beginning of the string right there, and that should give us adequate power. If I don't short that out, burn everything up. Anyway, that should give us adequate power to power all this clearly. So we'll bring you back after we get that all hooked up. Okay, we have our power supply hooked up. We have our board plugged in over here. We have removed the jumper on the board, which is right there. And that jumper basically makes sure that this power and this power are not connected together. I pointed this power over here. This power here are not being joined together on this board. The laptop is powering the STM32 microprocessor. This power supply is powering everything else, including the LEDs. And you can probably see the color just in the reflection there is yellow over there now, and it's also yellow over here. So everything looks really good. So we're going to play around, tweaking colors up and down a little bit to see what we like and get a feel for how this looks. But yeah, the strings look like they're working okay now. So we're done playing with the lights for tonight. This has just been a couple of seconds since the last video. We're going to move on to starting the wiring of the switches in the back. So Our first step is to take this to take this playfield back to the table, set it up in there, and measure how much extra wire we need that'll go from the end of this table to where we're going to mount our control board. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, we have the playfield set up on the box. The wires are of course all going to be wired on here, and they're going to come down from the down to the bottom down here, and somewhere on this side of the board they're going to drop down. They're going to run through here. I don't know if you can see it where Mike is running that wire, and then they're going to come up through the box here, and we're going to mount our control panel right in this space here. So we're going to give ourselves about 6 extra inches of wire and then cut that, and that's how much longer we're going to make all the wires that we install. So we're going to start by running the ground wire for the switches. We're using I think 20 gauge blue wire for this, 20 gauge blue. And we're going to start right here. We have the blue wire cut the length of our cable, and we're going to start right there, and we're going to just daisy chain through all of the switches on this side of the table, wrap around and get all the switches on the other side of the table, and then we're going to come back over here and bring the same wire down, creating a endless loop of ground wire around the table. And then each of the switches is going to have an independent input into my computer board. Unlike most of the pinball games that use matrix switches, so I didn't cut down the wiring a little bit, I wanted to have an individual signal from each switch. It just made it much easier to wire up, because that way we have one ground loop and a data line to each switch, and if a switch doesn't work, there's no question about what is causing the problem, and you don't have all of the diodes to deal with. So that's our wiring strategy. We'll be working on this for most of the night, so we'll bring you back from time to time and show you our progress. For this ground wire loop, we are not cutting the wires. We're just stretching the insulation around it and wrapping it all the way around and then soldering it on. And that way we don't have to worry about a cold solder joint stopping the ground from all the rest of the switches on the playfield. So a combination of this technique plus bringing 2 grounds back up to the control board should ensure that none of our switches are ever starved for grounds. We're coming back this way, right? So I lied to you when I said I'd bring you back along the way and show you our progress. We're actually done with running the ground wire. So that's our progress. You can see it starts over there. It winds its way around the table, catching all of the switches. And it's not dressed down yet. We're going to get some staples and staple it down to the table just like the real guys would do it. The only thing that hasn't been done, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, I disconnected 5 switches that I didn't think I would need here, and I do need them. They are still on my desk at home, so I will bring them back the next time I'm here, and I will hook them up, and we will connect the grounds together and connect it into this ground string. So we'll pick the grounds back up. It's nothing lost. I'm not sure if we're going to stop here and move on to some other things, or if we're going to start running the white wire. We have this large spool of white wire, since there's an individual signal that comes from each switch. But I think I want to get some labels so we can label which switches they are as we're putting them in. So I don't think we'll get started on that tonight. Well, hello, it's Monday again, and we're back down at the shed. We are starting the job of pulling in the white wires, which will connect to all the switches. Unlike a regular pinball machine that has every wire a separate color code, all our wires are going to be identically colored. We are going to be writing little labels on them. Mike's got some label stock over here, and we got a little jerry-rigged up wire holder. We'll pull these things out, bring them down. I'll solder them onto the switches. Mike will label them, and we will just step through and add a wire to every one of the switches. When we're done with that, I will add a connector to the end of that wire, and I already have that layout done, which will marry up with my computer board and allow the computer to read those switches. That's it for now. We'll bring you back time to time and show you our progress as we move along on this. Mike's just laying in some plastic hoops to guide the wires so we can tell where they're gonna go, and we're gonna lace the wires in as we're building the harness out. So we'll bring you back several times along the way to show you how we're progressing. Well, this wiring is going really quickly. It's only about maybe 20 minutes since we were here, and we've already got quite a bundle of wires starting to collect, and we got most of the switches on the top end of the machine done. We're having to swap out one of our guides because we put too small of a one in there. I still haven't done the 5 switches that go here, so those are 5 that will get hooked up a little later on. But this is working out really, really well. I do one end, Mike does the other end, and it just clicks right along. So again, we'll bring you back when we get farther down the line. Well, we have finished the wiring of the switches on this board, except for those 5 that I mentioned that we didn't have the switches for. So we will add those in the next time we come down here. But it looks pretty good, makes a pretty neat bundle. They're all labeled, and maybe the next time I'm down here I'll bring my schematics down, and we'll start adding connectors to these and clipping them into their respective connectors for the control board. So it's moving on. So I think that's going to be it for tonight. We have to clean these tables off because we're going to use them for another event this coming weekend. So we're going to spend some time doing that, but I'm not going to bore you guys with that work. So we're going to get that table cleaned off and this table cleaned off and get them ready to take down to our other event. So you guys have a great weekend.